Hi, I'm Yulia, and this is the News Brief. Today we're going to catch up on where we are with war and what's been happening in the past week, and there has been a lot. And of course, we're going to discuss it together in the comments, so you don't have to suffer alone, and I don't have to suffer alone. So please leave your questions, suggestions, constructive criticism, and anything you might have in your mind in the comments down below, because I read all of it and I greatly appreciate our back and forth communication. Let's go. There is a new aid delivery mechanism for Ukraine called PURL, or PURL. The U.S. and NATO launched PURL, prioritized Ukraine requirements list, enabling allied countries to fund U.S.-made defense products for Ukraine. And the Netherlands already pledged €500 million, which amounts to about $578 million for the first batch of it, and it's going to include Patriots. Patriots are incredibly important for Ukraine, and I'll give you a real-life example. Actually, this weekend, I was at a wedding, and my mother came over to go to this wedding with me. Now, she lives in Lviv, so she's not necessarily used to constant air raids, and she's not used to constant drone strikes, and she's definitely not used to constant ballistic strikes. And there was an air raid at some point during the weekend. I believe it was Saturday to Sunday night. And we heard the air raid. It was an Iskander system, so the ballistic missile was launched from a system, not from an aircraft, so it's not like we had an hour or so to prepare. We had about 8 minutes. And somewhere in the distance, as we were going down to the bomb shelter, we heard a blast. And that blast was air defense taking down a ballistic missile. Now, normally, it's really hard to intercept those, and Patriots are about the only system that can do that. And when a ballistic missile strikes, it's the sound from that, the sound wave from it hitting somewhere, or even from being intercepted close to target, is incredibly loud. It's incredibly loud. It's incredibly bright. You hear it very, very vividly. Now, this one felt like it was in the distance because there was an adequate amount of Patriot missiles that were able to intercept that strike, and it was intercepted way before it ever reached anywhere close to the center of Kyiv. And again, it was intercepted. It didn't hit, it didn't reach its target, so it felt very far away. You could still sleep through it, while normally it sounds like something is blowing up inside of your brain. These are very important. Patriot missile systems are likely some of the most important things that Ukraine can ask from its allies, that Ukraine needs from its allies, because they save lives and they preserve our ability to sleep. They preserve our ability to, well, not die in our sleep. And again, they're one of the only systems that can actually intercept ballistic missiles, especially such as Iskander. Now, Ukraine and Japan are having a very interesting initiative together. It's a Ukraine-Japan drone collaboration, and Ukraine is set to co-develop drones with Japan, ranging from agricultural reconnaissance drones to other models, and they're based on Ukraine wartime experience. The initiative was discussed during Sibiha's trip to Tokyo. And interestingly enough, there is also the World Expo happening in Japan right now, and I personally know some of the Ukrainian teams that went to it. It's a very interesting event where a lot of countries are able to present themselves and what they have been working on, and sort of like new innovation and just cultural things. At this World Expo, Ukraine is going this year. We went last year. And this year, one of the coolest initiatives for marketing at this event and for, Ukrainian expression in general was the initiative of gratitude, where you basically have this template that has been pre-uploaded on a bunch of Ukrainian websites, and you can go and you can print it, and then you can write in your own thoughts. And it's kind of like, Ukraine thinks blank, like wartime friends are the best or something like that. And they're posters that you can write your own city into if you live somewhere, I don't know, in say Texas or in Tokyo, or if you live in Berlin, or if you live literally anywhere. So you can write in Ukraine thanks Berlin, and then there's like a cool little slogan that follows that, and you post it all over your city so people know that we're very, very grateful for their support. So it's for like allied countries and partner countries and countries that helped us out. And it's called the Initiative of Gratitude. And I thought it was such an amazing thing to do because, it's hard to reach people in different places because algorithms these days are very particular. And you would think that actually we live in globalism, so it wouldn't be hard to reach someone in Zurich. But for instance, if like not that many people look for information about Ukraine in Zurich, then if you want to thank them for Switzerland supporting Ukraine or something like that, it's going to be hard to do because they're not likely to see your videos. So these posters are actually a very great human in person way of thanking our partners and people in all of these countries for supporting us and for standing up for us. And I thought it was fantastic. I actually personally know the people that came up with this initiative, and it's great. One of the representative agencies that are going to this expo in Tokyo this year is actually Spend with Ukraine, which is headed by Yulia Tymoshenko, not the former prime minister, a fantastic 25-year-old woman who is an activist and who is also the head of Spend with Ukraine initiative, and they're going to be representing our country, and I could not be more proud. Meanwhile, speaking of drones, Russia is building drone bases in Donetsk airport. Yes, that airport that has been taken over by Russia in 2014, the Ukrainian soldiers stood so bravely to defend. And, we have this saying that the people withstood, the concrete didn't, because Russia completely ruined the airport and Russia completely ruined, well, the city at the time of taking it over. So satellite imagery reveals Russia is building underground depots, command posts, and launch zones for Shahed drones at the occupied Donetsk airport, a major step toward boosting its drone warfare in eastern Ukraine. This is actually horrible news because Russia has been attacking Ukraine with swarms of drones, and we've talked about it so many times on this channel. At this point, it's about 700 drones per night. And the closer their launch sites are located to Ukraine, the harder it's going to be to intercept them. The less time it actually takes for the air defense to notice them and to intercept them, and the less time people actually have to go to the bomb shelter when these drones are launched. Because drones are not necessarily very fast. I mean, they're fast when we're talking about human experience. They're definitely faster than your car on average, but they're not faster than missiles. Obviously, they're much slower, and it's easier to intercept drones than missiles to some degree, to a degree in which they're not nearly as fast, but they're smaller, they're harder to see in the sky, and they also now fly at very low altitudes. So this initiative at bringing these drones to the Donetsk airport and launching them so close to the major cities in Ukraine is actually going to bury our air defense capabilities further because, again, as I said, there is a lot less reaction time. And both for the air defense systems and for people to hide from these attacks. And of course, Donetsk is much closer to, say, Kyiv or Odessa or Zaporizhia or any other city than any major city in Russia where they have been launching those from, because it normally takes some hours to also reach Ukrainian cities. And from Donetsk, that's not going to be the case, and it is a really big deal and a really big problem. Now, the ISW came out with a reminder for all of you, the people in the West. Kremlin is not interested in peace without Ukraine's capitulation. And Foreign Minister Lavrov, our favorite little dark horse, pun intended, reiterated that peace must meet Kremlin terms, or any peace must meet Kremlin terms. And one of those terms is demilitarization, regime change in Ukraine, and more. The rhetoric mirrors direct lines from Putin and Lukashenko, which is so funny about the regime change because, as we have seen a couple of weeks ago, there were mass protests in Ukraine, and our government actually listened to us and changed the law that we were absolutely not okay with. So calling something a regime when people can freely protest and the police is on the side of the people and supports the people and is there to support the people and to make sure that everyone is safe, not to chain or cuff anyone. And when there are ambulances to make sure that, if protesters feel bad, they can be given aid to. It's really funny to call this type of political environment a regime. Also, specifically because Ukrainians have came out en masse and said that we were not protesting against our president. We were not protesting to change our government. We were not protesting against anything like that. We were protesting against the law, which means the people support the president and the people support the overall message that the president has been delivering to the outside world this whole time. So regime? No. And why is it that Putin's wishes for Ukraine's government must stand above Ukrainian people's wishes for Ukraine's government? I don't know any dictatorship and I don't know any regime where people can freely protest And I don't know any regime in which the government listens to the people and adjusts course based on what they want. Meanwhile, the EU prepares sanctions against China, according to Reuters, because China supplies Russia with drone engines disguised as industrial refrigerator units. The EU is preparing sanctions over China's covert support of Moscow's war effort. But those are not the only things that China has been doing. I mean, officially, Chinese government position is neutral, but they have quite literally been helping Russia out a lot with a lot of technology. They also recently refused to stop buying Russian oil, so there are sanctions from the U.S. incoming as well. There is lots that's been going on in that regard, and China at this point is probably Russia's strongest ally. Interestingly enough, there are actually a lot of people in China that are against Russia's allyship with China. And of course, they can't speak out about it directly, but August is considered to be a Chinese tourism month in Ukraine. And there actually have been a lot of Chinese tourists on the streets of Kyiv who are live streaming from Kyiv to show what's going on in Ukraine to audiences back home. And it's a form of protest, and it's a form of protest that the Chinese government can't necessarily punish you for, because these bloggers come here, they live stream like 24/7, they live stream Shahed. It's actually a very interesting site. They sit there with their tripods, and what they do is, because the Chinese government's official position is neutrality, they come to Ukraine, they don't comment on which side they're on, they don't say anything in support of Ukraine or against Russia, but they just show what's happening. And that's sort of their way to show that the Chinese people in huge quantities do not support this covert allyship with Russia. Well, that's all I have for you for today, and I really hope that you enjoyed this episode and that you learned something new. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel, turn on all of your notifications, and of course, send this video to a friend, give it a like, and leave me all of your thoughts in the comments. See you next time.